My name is Paul Vallone, and you are listening to 106.7 Wilmington's Big Talker. I would like to welcome you to Guns, Politics, and Freedom, where each Sunday at 5 p.m., as part of the Sunday Night Political Power Block, we give you the ammunition to better defend your gun rights. I'd also like to thank our sponsor, Hyatt Guns, America's largest gun shop. Check them out at hyattguns.com. Now, in case you aren't familiar with me, I direct Grassroots North Carolina, or GRNC, since 1994, our state's most effective gun rights organization. As its director, I was involved in drafting and passing our original concealed handgun law. Since then, GRNC has gone on to engineer passage of concealed handgun reciprocity, our purchase permit bypass, Castle Doctrine and Stand Your Ground, the expansion of concealed carry into state and municipal parks, restaurants, public assemblies, educational properties, and much more. Grassroots North Carolina is exactly what the name implies. A grassroots collection of people from all walks of life who share a common concern that our constitutionally guaranteed freedoms are being eroded. Check us out at grnc.org. That's grnc.org. For any of those who have had the misfortune to watch any part of the Salem witch trials, otherwise known as the Brett Kavanaugh Supreme Court confirmation hearings, a large part of our show today will involve the implication of those hearings for both gun rights and American culture and Western culture writ large. In particular, I received an interesting tidbit of information from a reader, a Mr. Smith to be exact, mentioning a psychological condition which neatly describes Christine Blasey Ford's testimony to the U.S. Senate. The word describing this condition, I am told, and have researched, is confabulation, and we will talk about that shortly. But first, this just in from the world of gun rights news. Putting lie to the usual leftist alarmism, the FBI reports that violent crime, including gun crime, was actually down for 2017. The report is the FBI's 2017 Crime in the United States and is an expanded form of the traditional FBI Uniform Crime Reports. This from the FBI's press release, and I quote, "After 2 consecutive years of increases, the estimated number of violent crimes in the nation decreased by 0.2% in 2017 compared with the 2016 data." Obama versus Trump eras. According to FBI figures released today, property crimes dropped by 3.0%, marking the 15th consecutive year the collective estimates for those offenses declined. The 2017 statistics show the estimated rate of violent crime was 382.9 offenses per 100,000 inhabitants, and the estimated rate of property crime was 2,362.2 offenses per 100,000 inhabitants. The violent crime rate fell 0.9% when compared with the 2016 rate. The property crime rate declined by 3.6%. There were 17,284 murders in 2017, a rate of 5.3 murders per 100,000 people. This represents a 1.85% decrease in the murder rate. The FBI received supplemental information concerning the type of weapon used for 15,129 homicides. Overall, the number of murders, aggravated assaults, and robberies committed with a firearm of any type decreased by 0.4%. The number of murders committed with a firearm declined by 1.4% from 2016 to 2017. This includes a 2.4% decrease in murders with a handgun. Now, the number of murders involving a rifle of any kind increased 6.6% due to the horrific attacks in Las Vegas and Sutherland Springs. Outside of those 2 attacks, however, the number of rifle murders decreased by 15.9%. That's all rifle murders, including those nasty old so-called assault weapons. The number of people killed with their attackers' fists, hands, or feet increased 4%. There were 696 people killed in such a manner, more than 72% more than killed with a rifle of any kind. Now, let's call this next one a new entry in the Bloomberg Chronicles. You are unfortunately probably aware of anti-gun zealot and billionaire Michael Bloomberg, former mayor of New York and funding source for myriad AstroTurf, or phony grassroots gun control organizations, most recently headed up by the entity calling itself Everytown for Gun Safety. Equally unfortunately, we have more news about Bloomberg. You've heard conjecture that the U.S. Senate might flip to Democrat control. Well, according to the New York Post, Bloomberg says he will donate $100 million, yes, $100 million, to flip control of the U.S. House to the Democrats. Guess he wants it bad. This is, of course, in addition to the other problems plaguing Republicans in the midterm elections, and it compares with only, and I use that word in quotes, only $65 million Bloomberg spent in the 2016 elections, which, of course, included the presidential race. Oh, and it gets better. Bloomberg also says he is weighing a run for the presidency in 2020. Better get out there and vote, folks, and while you're at it, bring lots of simpatico friends. And last but not least for our first segment of the show, gun violence restraining orders, otherwise known as red flag laws, which should actually be known as law-abiding citizen disarmament orders. You've probably heard that such orders are merely designed to protect us from violent sociopaths bent on mayhem. After all, we don't want crazy people having guns, do we? But like so much of what the left has to offer to keep us, quote, safe, end quote, the devil is in the details. So if you ever want to see what the left's next disarmament step will be, always look to California, testbed for gun control and other socialist utopian concepts, but especially for gun control. They always run it there first. So it is with great interest that we look at what California has passed. According to a recent NRA report, quote, a California law, AB 1014, allows a family member or law enforcement officer to obtain a court order, a gun violence restraining order, or GVRO, against another person. The order requires the mandatory confiscation by local law enforcement of all firearms, and listen to this, the restrained person owns, possesses, or has access to. In other words, perhaps you living in the house of somebody that has a gun violence restraining order placed against them, they will confiscate your guns too. A temporary or emergency restraining order, this is called an ex parte order, and is a part of all of the gun violence restraining order legislation which is being proposed in various states after the Parkland shootings. A temporary or emergency order is issued without notice or the opportunity to contest the order by the affected person. In other words, you don't get your day in court, and is effective for 21 days pending a second court hearing. At this full hearing, where the affected person has a right to appear and answer the allegations, the court may either terminate the 21-day order or extend the gun ban by issuing a 1-year GVRO. A court may renew such 1-year orders indefinitely, leading to a potential lifetime gun ban. A restrained person who violates a GVRO, for example, you don't turn over all your guns, or you have access to another firearm, heaven help you, commits a criminal offense and in addition to the other penalties, faces an additional mandatory 5-year gun ban, which begins to run even once the existing GVRO expires. We should note that in addition to lack of due process under the Fifth Amendment, prior to losing your civil rights, the California legislature just passed additional legislation allowing employers, co-workers, teachers, and other school employees to seek a court-ordered suspension of your gun rights. So virtually anybody can decide that you own guns, therefore you are dangerous, and get them confiscated. Fortunately, California Governor Moonbeam, Jerry Brown, vetoed this legislation, at least for now. You are listening to Guns, Politics, and Freedom on Wilmington's Big Talker, 106.7, wilmingtonbigtalker.com. We're going to take a short break, after which we will return with a discussion of what the Brett Kavanaugh hearings mean for gun rights and indeed American society. My name is Paul Vallone, and you are listening to Guns, Politics, and Freedom today on Wilmington's Big Talker, 106.7, wilmingtonbigtalker.com. Our show is sponsored by Hyatt Guns, America's largest gun shop. Check them out at hyattguns.com. In a moment, we will discuss the implications of the Salem witch trial, otherwise known as the Brett Kavanaugh Supreme Court nomination hearings. But I want you to grab a pen and paper because toward the end of this show, I'm going to give you some numbers to call. Now, when faced with the most vicious, immoral charade the evil party can dish out, the stupid party, as always, has responded by working to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. And by the way, I'm going to give you a little background. A columnist for the Washington Times I had the good fortune to meet, Samuel Francis, once said at a luncheon, and I quote, "Our political system is anchored by two parties, the stupid party and the evil party, and occasionally, in the spirit of bipartisanship, they produce legislation which is both stupid and evil." And unfortunately, the evil party is once again manipulating the stupid party. Never mind that the FBI has already investigated Brett Kavanaugh's background no fewer than 6 times, or that if Dianne Feinstein had truly wanted an investigation, she could have raised the issue nearly 2 months ago. Never mind the utter lack of corroboration, or that the fabrication of at least 2 of Kavanaugh's accusers are so utterly lacking credibility that even the anti-Trump purveyor of fake news, otherwise known as the New York Times, yes, even the New York Times, would not publish their lies. And never mind that calls for additional FBI investigation are stall tactics from Dianne Feinstein and Chuck Schumer to give them more time to slander Kavanaugh and destroy not only his life, but those of his wife and little girls. Oh yes, and never mind that the Arizona senator, who shall henceforth be known as Jeff the Flake, announced just yesterday morning that he would vote, just Friday morning, that he would vote for Kavanaugh. Nope, in a landscape where facts no longer matter, and the politics of personal destruction has risen to a new art form, Jeff the Flake now says he is joining the screaming left in calling for additional torture of the Kavanaugh family, bringing with him all the usual rhinos, namely Lisa Murkowski of Alaska and Susan Collins of Maine. And now, lacking enough votes to confirm Kavanaugh without that gang of 3, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and President Trump are forced to permit additional FBI involvement, even though running the clock, and that, by the way, is a phrase of political art, running the clock is an introductory level tactic for any minority party. So the question becomes, who's really at fault? Now, I don't blame Christine Blasey Ford, whom I suspect really believes what she is saying. Quite probably, she really was sexually assaulted by somebody, but in a particularly virulent metastasizing of Trump derangement syndrome into a more deadly disease we should call left-wing derangement syndrome. She seems to have reconstructed her ancient memories into what she wants to believe. Now, if you're like me, you might have struggled with this one. After all, Ford sounded utterly believable in testifying to the U.S. Senate, did she not? I mean, credible anyways for someone who can't name the date or place of an assault allegedly committed 36 years ago, but anyways. Fortunately, one of my readers, Mr. Smith, just filled it in for me. There is actually a psychological syndrome describing what Ford may be experiencing. Listen to this from healthline.com. Confabulation is a symptom of various memory disorders in which made-up memories fill in any gaps in memory. German psychiatrist Karl Bonhoeffer coined the term confabulation in 1900. He used it to describe when a person gives false answers or answers that sound fantastical or made up. While this condition may at first sound like lying, confabulation only occurs when you have a condition that affects your memory. Trump derangement syndrome? This is why confabulation is often described as honestly lying. Someone with confabulation has memory loss that affects their higher reasoning. They subconsciously create stories as a way to conceal their memory loss. They aren't aware that they aren't telling the truth. They don't have any doubt about the things they are saying, even if those around them know the story is untrue. Well, there you have it. Confabulation. I can't think of a phrase which more neatly describes what I heard on Thursday. The other two accusers, of course, are just Me Too liars, especially the one represented by what Tucker Carlson has so eloquently branded as the creepy porn lawyer. But to the larger point of discussion here, memory is fallible. That is one of the reasons our legal system, unlike many others, is based not solely on accusers' assertions, but on corroborating evidence. Corroborating evidence which, by all currently known facts, in this case does not exist. What is occurring is the Democrat-led debacle in the U.S. Senate is not rooted in American laws or decency. It is a recreation of the Salem witch trials. At the present rate, I suspect, Democrats will likely propose dunking Brett Kavanaugh in a pond. If he lives, he's a sexual abuser. If he drowns, he's innocent. But this fine point of law, the corroboration of evidence, is lost on the left, who will bend any fact, any principle, any moral in order to gain what Senator Lindsey Graham, perhaps for the first time in recent memory, so correctly identified on Thursday when he told the Dems, quote, "Boy, you all want power. God, I hope you never get it." Now, I want you to listen to the strident left in the following clip as they ignore legal precedent and a couple of thousand years of Western culture.
And you're telling all women that they don't matter, that they should just stay quiet because if they tell you what happened to them, you're going to ignore them. That's what happened to me, and that's what you're telling all women in America, that they don't matter. They should just keep it to themselves because if they have told the truth, you're just going to help that man to power anyway. That's what you're telling all of these women. That's what you're telling me right now. Look at me when I'm talking to you. You're telling me that my assault doesn't matter, that what happened to me doesn't matter, and that you're going to let people who do these things into power. That's what you're telling me when you vote for him.
There you have it, the sound of the end of our civilization if we allow it to continue. As I will reiterate later, Brett Kavanaugh's future is your future. And Jeff the Flake aside, going back to this topic of blames. Jeff the Flake aside, I really don't blame Republicans. I will admit that grassroots North Carolina spends more time beating on squishy Republicans for compliance rather than beating on Democrats because, frankly, there is nothing to be gained from trying to punish ideologically committed opponents in secure political districts, at least not if you actually want to create legislative change. But I would argue that the fault for evil rests with the purveyors of evil, rather than just those too weak to resist. So, for a moment, instead of griping about the weakness of rhinos, I want you to think long and hard about what will happen if the purveyors of evil win in the upcoming election. On that note, we're going to take a short break. You are listening to Wilmington's Big Talker, 106.7. My name is Paul Vallone. In just a moment, we will resume with our interpretation of the implications of the Brett Kavanaugh hearings on gun rights, American law, Western culture, for that matter. See you shortly. My name is Paul Vallone, and you are listening to Guns, Politics, and Freedom today on Wilmington's Big Talker, 106.7, WilmingtonBigTalker.com. Our show is sponsored by Hyatt Gun Shop, America's largest gun shop. Check them out at HyattGuns.com. Now, in previous segments of the show, we have discussed what the Brett Kavanaugh witch trials in the U.S. Senate, also known as the Supreme Court nomination hearings, mean to gun rights, Western culture, and you. As I will flesh out shortly, Brett Kavanaugh's future is your future, because what you are seeing is not merely a Democrat power play, willing to destroy the lives not only of Brett Kavanaugh, but also the wives of his wife and his little girls. What we are seeing is the denigration of our entire system of law and morals, as not only the usual manipulators of useful idiots, namely Dianne Feinstein and Chuck Schumer, but also the American left in total have decided that Brett Kavanaugh needs to be punished for sexual assault, absent any corroborating evidence, and indeed the likelihood that his one quasi-credible accuser, Christine Blasey Ford, is likely reconstructing false memories in a psychological condition called confabulation. Now, why would the left decide to punish Kavanaugh absent any evidence? It isn't just because they feel he might overturn Roe v. Wade. It isn't just because he might subtly change the makeup of the High Court. After all, retiring Justice Anthony Kennedy, whom Kavanaugh will replace, did vote with conservatives on most issues. Nope, they are destroying Kavanaugh because Kavanaugh has the audacity to disagree with their political philosophy, their utopian vision of society in which they utterly control not only what you do, but what you think. In short, as with any good jihadist, heretics must die. So next, let's consider what a Democrat administration and Congress, or a Democrat General Assembly and governor, will look like if the left wing wins the upcoming midterm elections and perhaps the presidential election beyond. What would such a world, such as an American society, look like? The continuation, if you will, of Obama's beginnings. First, the right to keep and bear arms will effectively end. In case you have been gullible enough to believe the nonsense about common sense gun safety, and that they just want to get rid of those nasty old assault weapons, remember that the New York Times and numerous Democrats have called for repealing the Second Amendment. One step at a time, they will not rest until the populace is disarmed and therefore subject to the tender mercies of government. Next, socialism will be the order of the day. Take a long, hard look at Venezuela, because that is your future under the party not only of Bernie Sanders, but also New York Democrat congressional candidate Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Maryland Democrat gubernatorial nominee Ben Jealous, and Florida Democrat gubernatorial nominee Andrew Gillum. The fruits of your labors will belong to the state. Now, let's listen, after all, to our former socialist-in-chief.
If you were successful, somebody along the line gave you some help. There was a great teacher somewhere in your life. Somebody helped to create this unbelievable American system that we had that allowed you to thrive. Somebody invested in roads and bridges. If you got a business, that you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen. The internet didn't get invented on its own.
Translated, what Obama is saying is that you owe the state the fruits of your labors because the state has allowed you to create them. That is the logic of socialists. Next, racism and sexism will become institutionalized. If you have the misfortune not to be a minority, or worse, God help you, if you are a white male, your rights will evaporate under the banner of Black Lives Matter. If you are not female, you will be assumed to be a sexual predator under the auspices of the Me Too movement. Next, totalitarianism will be inevitable. No, I'm not saying the government will crack down and roll the tanks the day after the Democrats win the election. But do you really think that speech codes and censorship by YouTube and Google are coincidental? In the gradual crackdown on civil liberties, which will inevitably result from leftist control, free speech will be the second victim, right after the right to keep and bear arms. All, of course, in the name of tolerance. Once again, Brett Kavanaugh's fate is your fate. So I want you to consider exactly how vicious animals like Dianne Feinstein and Chuck Schumer and others of their ilk, how vicious they must be to perpetuate a fraud that will destroy multiple lives just in order to shape the makeup of the Supreme Court. This debate isn't about Kavanaugh. Rest assured, leftists were every bit as prepared to destroy anybody nominated to fill Anthony Kennedy's seat. As you recall, they even had press releases that were issued with a fill-in-the-blank for the name. The debate is only marginally about control of Congress. Yeah, the Democrats are stalling in part to avoid putting red state Democrats like Joe Manchin on the wrong side of a confirmation vote, but that is only a side benefit of their tactics. And in fact, the debate isn't even just about the composition of the Supreme Court. Although the leftist intention to use the Supreme Court as a political instrument to undermine the Constitution and impose collectivism, by reinterpreting the Constitution to mean whatever they want it to mean, that is a proximate cause of this battle. But it's not the ultimate goal. This debate is actually a civil war over the future of our republic. Control and power, folks. Control and power. For a change, Senator Lindsey Graham, as I previously said, was spot on when he said to the Democrats, "Boy, you all want power. God, I hope you never get it." This is civil war at the ballot box. Now, I'm not saying that your left-leaning neighbor or friend or relative is part of some grand conspiracy to control you. I frankly don't do conspiracy theory. Although, as one of my board members once said, you don't have to be a member of the choir to sing from the same piece of sheet music. Now, I have long divided leftists into two categories. There are the useful idiots, and there are the manipulators of the useful idiots. Your lefty cousin is among the former, but I can assure you Senators Dianne Feinstein, Chuck Schumer, and Cory Booker, a.k.a. Spartacus, number among the latter, the manipulators of the useful idiots. They know precisely what they are doing. What happens next is up to you, not just with respect to the Kavanaugh confirmation, but the election itself, which will, to a large extent, chart the future of our republic. If you give a damn about any of this, you must do two things. I'm going to ask you to make 6 phone calls. I want you to tell the following U.S. senators to confirm Kavanaugh now, and that if they fail to do so, they will lose the confidence of conservatives who support them and quite possibly control of Congress. Those 6 senators, okay, write them down, and I will repeat this later. The 6 senators to contact are Mitch McConnell, Republican of Kentucky. His phone number is 502-582-6304. Here in North Carolina, Richard Burr, 202-224-3154. Tom Tillis, 202-224-6342. Jeff Flake, 602-840-1891. Susan Collins of Maine, 207-622-8414. And finally, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, 907-271-3735. I will repeat those numbers in our next segment as well. Right now, you have been listening to Guns, Politics, and Freedom on Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7, wilmingtonbigtalker.com. We will return with the Kavanaugh confirmation and another show of tolerance from the American left. My name is Paul Vallone, and you are listening to Guns, Politics, and Freedom today on Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7, wilmingtonbigtalker.com, sponsored by Hyatt Gun Shop, America's largest gun shop. Check them out at hyattguns.com. Now, before the break, we were discussing how the Kavanaugh witch trial represents not just Democrat dirty tricks to defeat a Trump Supreme Court nomination, but instead the denigration of 2,000 years of Western law and culture, because Kavanaugh's fate is your fate. If you choose to oppose the leftists' envisioned socialist utopia, you are the enemy and you must be destroyed. Heretics must die. So once again, if you give a damn about any of this, you must do two things. First, I ask you to make 6 phone calls. Tell the following Republican U.S. senators to confirm Kavanaugh now, and that if they fail to do so, they will lose the confidence of conservatives who support them and quite probably control of Congress. The 6 U.S. senators you need to contact, including some out of the state for whom we have given district office numbers to avoid the roadblocks of their Washington offices. Those senators are Mitch McConnell, Republican of Kentucky, whose phone number is 502-582-6304. Again, 502-582-6304. In North Carolina, we have Richard Burr, 202-224-3154. 202-224-3154. Tom Tillis, 202-224-6342. Again, 202-224-6342. Then we have Jeff Flake from Arizona, Republican of Arizona. His phone number is 602-840-1891. 602-840-1891. Susan Collins, Republican of Maine, 207-622-8414. 207-622-8414. And finally, Lisa Murkowski, Republican of Alaska, 907-271-3735, 907-271-3735. Yes, I know you are not in the states of many of these senators. I don't care. Call them anyways. I also ask you to help distribute 150,000 Remember and November voter guides. In past years, Grassroots North Carolina managed to distribute 150,000 voter guides, evaluating all state and federal candidates on their stance on guns to gun-owning voters. So far this year, we don't have the money to do it again. I'm asking you to please help by contributing to Grassroots North Carolina by going to grnc.org. Again, grnc.org. This November will witness nothing less than civil war at the ballot box. Left and right have very different visions for the future of our country. As always, GRNC stands for our Constitution as it was intended by the framers, with a special emphasis on the right to keep and bear arms. I'm asking you, in fact begging you, to help GRNC defend our republic as it was intended by the brave men who designed the world's best system of government. Again, that's grnc.org. Finally, I would like to read for you a gem by Pat Buchanan, which I read from ammoland.com, an excellent gun rights news clipping service which I heartily recommend. That's ammoland.com, and the piece is called The Unpardonable Heresy of Tucker Carlson. It begins, "Our diversity is our greatest strength." After playing clips of Democratic politicians reciting that truth of modern liberalism, Tucker Carlson asked, "How precisely is diversity our strength? Since you've made this our new national motto, please be specific." Reaction to Carlson's question, with some declaring him a racist for even having raised it, suggests that what we are dealing with is not a demonstrable truth, but a creed not subject to debate. Yet the question remains valid. Where is the scientific, historic, or empirical evidence that the greater the racial, ethnic, cultural, and religious diversity of a nation, the stronger it becomes? From recent decades, it seems more true to say the reverse. The more diverse a nation, the greater the danger of its disintegration. Ethnic diversity, after all, tore apart our mighty Cold War rival, splintering the Soviet Union into 15 nations, 3 of which, Moldova, Ukraine, and Georgia, have since split further along ethnic lines. Russia had to fight 2 wars to hold on to Chechnya and prevent the diverse people of the Caucasus from splitting off on ethnic grounds, as Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan have done. Ethnic diversity then shattered Yugoslavia into separate nations. And even as we proclaim diversity to be our greatest strength, nations everywhere are recoiling from it. The rise of populism and nationalism across Europe is a reaction to the new diversity represented by the Arab, Asian, and African millions who have lately come, and the tens of millions desperate to enter. Center-left and center-right parties are losing ground in European elections because they are seen as feckless in meeting what more and more indigenous Europeans believe to be an existential threat: mass migration from across the Med. Japan's population has ceased to grow, and each year brings fewer toddlers into its schools, yet Tokyo resists the racial and ethnic diversity greater immigration would bring. Why, if diversity is indeed strength? What social South Koreans dream of is uniting again with the 22 million separated members of their national family who live in the north but share the same history and blood. This summer, in its basic law, Israel declared itself to be an ethno-national state and national home of the Jewish people. African immigrants crossing the Sinai to seek sanctuary in Israel are unwelcome. Consider China, which seeks this century to surpass America as the first power on earth. Does Xi Jinping welcome a greater racial, ethnic, and cultural diversity within his country as, say, Barack Obama did in ours? In his western province, Xi has set up an archipelago of detention camps. Purpose? Re-educate his country's Uyghurs and Kazakhs by purging them of their religious and tribal identities and making them and their children more like Han Chinese in allegiance to the Communist Party and Chinese nation. Xi fears that 10 million Uyghurs of Xinjiang, as an ethnic and religious minority, predominantly Muslim, wish to break away and establish an East Turkestan, a nation of their own, out of China. And he is correct. What China is doing is brutalitarian. I love that word. But what China is saying with its ruthless policy is that diversity, religious, racial, and cultural, can break us apart as it did the USSR. And we're not going to let that happen. Do the Buddhists of Myanmar cherish the religious diversity that the Muslim, I won't even pronounce that, bring to their country? America has always been more than an idea, an ideology, or a propositional nation. It is a country that brings to a separate and identifiable people with its own history, heroes, holidays, symbols, songs, myths, mores, its own culture. Again, where is the evidence that more Americans who can trace their roots to the Third World and not to Europe, the stronger we will be? In the Britain of Theresa May, with its new racial, religious, and ethnic diversity, a stronger nation than was the UK of Lloyd George, which ruled a fourth mankind in 1920? Was it not the unity Bismarck forged among the diverse Germanic peoples, bringing them into a single nation under the Kaiser in 1871, that made Germany a far stronger and more formidable power in Europe? Might not have been a good thing, but whatever. Empires, confederations, and allegiances are multi-ethnic and multicultural, and invariably their diversity pulls them apart. The British Empire was the greatest in modern history. What tore it apart? Tribalism, the demands of diverse peoples rooted in blood and soil to be rid of foreign rule and to have their own place in the sun. And who are the loudest in preaching about that diversity is our strength? Are they not the same people who told us that democracy was the destiny of all mankind, and that as the world's exceptional nation we must seize the opportunity of our global preeminence to impose its blessing on the less enlightened tribes of the Middle East and Hindu Kush? If the establishment is proven wrong about greater diversity bringing greater strength to America, there will be no do-over for the USA. In closing, remember, Brett Kavanaugh's fate is your fate. You must stop the debacle by calling your United States senators and helping us distribute voter guides by going to grnc.org. My name is Paul Vallone. You've been listening to Guns, Politics, and Freedom on Wilmington's Big Talker, 106.7 WilmingtonBigTalker.com, where each Sunday at 5 p.m., as part of the Sunday Night Political Power Block, we give you the ammunition to better defend your gun rights. Please check out our sponsor, Hyatt Guns, America's largest gun shop, at HyattGuns.com, and join us again next Sunday at 5.